the highest in the hierarchy of the tablets, the Watchtower tablets that we're talking about, and it was right up close. The hawk of sky blue colored fire was right there, right in front of me, not only in my mind, but I could feel its presence in front of me coming out of the tablet, and I could feel that connection 17 years in the past. And it was just so overwhelming an experience. There are no words to properly describe the intensity, but that was a real climax to a state of being that's truly beyond space and time, a realm of pure energy that can only be described as flames within flames within flames. That's not a good way to describe it, but it's, like I said, this is such a transcendent reality that I'm talking about that there's no proper way to describe it. So I think that was the climax of that whole initiatory process. Of course, the word initiation simply means to begin something. And in a magical context, it means to begin a new stage on a magical curriculum. That's the value of the Enochian tablets, because they are divided among the elements. And the Golden Dawn, in their initiatory system, had an order of grades that charted the elements from earth, air, water, fire, and then to spirit. So that's the order that I was using them. That's the order in which I approached the tablets. And so I felt with each new tablet, it was beginning a new stage of my initiatory process. And it was completely outside a group context. There was just myself, sometimes my magical partner, and my magical paraphernalia, in this case, the elemental tablet of fire. And so this was an apex of my whole life that was just amazing. And even that, I guess, occurred in 2004. Here it is about 3 years later, and I'm still trying to more completely ascend to that level of operation. It's amazing the type of time paradox that magic can take you through, and other people have told me their experiences with this idea of feeling the effect of a ritual before you actually perform it. Mm-hmm. Now, in this case, I can't help but be reminded of a series of science fiction movies that came out of the 90s featuring this evil character called Death, D-E-T-H, and their technology was that they could send the psyche of a person back in time and inhabit the body of someone in that prior time, rather than sending the whole person back in time. So that's an idea that's been around in the science fiction genre for a while. But with magic, I actually experienced it, or at least a piece of it.
One of the things that I've noticed, and you kind of emphasize this a lot at the beginning of your introduction, and then within the first part of your journal, where you see the entities as not external beings, not some kind of etheric entity that is outside of yourself. You see them as part of your mind or psyche, or consciousness, or subconsciousness, so forth, and that you also approach this in a non-religious format, so, more of kind of a secular aspect of this is not a religious external being like real angels or real demons or real gods or whatever, but this is more of a psychological process where, you're isolating certain aspects of your mind or consciousness, externalizing them to deal with them. Why do you have that perspective on this? And you kind of go into it a little, but what is your background that you're pulling into that, and was the system enforcing of that, or did it kind of push you into seeing it in a different way?
Well, what happened in my experience is that since early childhood, I've always had the consciousness that humanity had just entered a new age. This is where all of the old institutions, the old beliefs, the old styles of thinking had been shuffled around and in many times replaced by something new. In particular, I felt that religion had, in its traditional forms, had become obsolete. I grew up in a Jewish household, but I've never expressed any interest in the Jewish religion. I know that it refers to writings, the Bible, the Torah, and various other of these writings that are very ancient and very much of the old age, if you will. I felt that now was the time to break free of all of that and to establish a whole new style of spirituality. And this spirituality was very much based on individuality. It was up to the individual to explore his or her own psyche. I had always believed that the way to discover divinity, any kind of higher reality or more blessed reality, is to journey through your own psyche and reach to the heart of your own being. As an old song from the 60s goes, take a journey to the center of your mind. I always felt that that was the way to go. I had also been very much inspired by the revolution of the 60s counterculture, their idea of fusing a lot of different cultures, old and new, to develop something specific for the individual. I understood that this, as part of the early age, the early part of the new age, that there was a lot of revolution going on, a lot of upheaval, and I very much wanted to be a part of that. It just felt instinctual to me to establish something new. And I also saw how fanatical some people could be in dealing with the old religions. Some people just went crazy with this kind of thing. In every religion, no religion is immune to this kind of thing. I felt that something new was in the offing, if you will, and I very much wanted to be a part of it. Now, I also understood that a part of this revolution was the scientific revolution, and here certain answers to very old questions, such as how did the universe come to be, how did humanity come to be, what was the nature of nature, so to speak. And science had come up with some very different answers than in the old religions. The advantage of science, of course, is that they could prove what they were talking about by experiment, and these experiments could be repeated anytime, anywhere, and you could achieve similar results, so that you could really develop a realistic picture of what's going on rather than just relying on faith in some transcendent being. Now, I'll also say that, growing up with a Jewish identity, if you will, even though I never got involved in the religion, I always understood that ethnically I was Jewish. And I've learned about the persecutions, the Holocaust in World War II, and things like that. And it always seemed to me that, how could people mindlessly believe in things that they couldn't see or prove to exist, and so many bad things had happened? How can you believe in anything like that anymore? So, my faith never existed. It just, the facts of nature, the facts of history just didn't jive with the story that the traditional religions give.
Mm-hmm.
And the very fact that there are so many religions in the world, how can any of them be correct, which would involve all the others being incorrect? Also, what sectarianism involved in so many of the religions of the world, and the bitter struggles and violence that occur between different sects of the same religion, as well as the battles between religions, it just seemed to me to discredit the entire religious paradigm. So I always wanted to stay as far away from that. Now, flash forward to the point when I was 18 years old, I had come to California and to join in the counterculture, whatever was left of the counterculture of the 1960s. And while the original movements of the 60s had kind of moved on, what I discovered was the occult scene. And I had started reading some occult books by various authors, but with Aleister Crowley, I really felt an intimate connection. And reading the Book of the Law, which is the primary holy book of Crowley's religion of Thelema, it just set off a complete revolution in my life. It was exactly what I was looking for. I had joined in with a new tradition that was really clearly pointing the way forward into the new age. Now, Crowley, being a Victorian Englishman, he uses the word eon instead of age, but they're synonyms. So Crowley's new eon was exactly what I had been feeling all my life. So there was an instant rapport with Crowley and his ideas. Now, Crowley wanted to bring a more rationalist and psychological bent to magic. The traditional medieval ceremonial magic was very much based on the old religious paradigm. God was real, seated in heaven somewhere, and his angels surrounded him. All of that was considered to be real. But in the modern scientific paradigm, a lot of that is understood as essences within the mind, that these aren't so much literally real creatures, but human ideals. They were archetypes in the collective unconscious, things that many people had believed in for a very long time, and that sets up patterns in the group mind, the collective unconscious. And through the use of magic, you can draw on the collective unconscious and really make inroads to your own deep subconscious. It's the way to a higher state of being, a higher state of mind. This seemed to me to be more realistic than completely faith-based, literal religious paradigm, which I had never believed in at any time. So I very much agreed with what Crowley was trying to do, and so I've tried to set up a whole new paradigm based on not only psychology but physics, quantum physics as well, in order to explain what's really going on. See, in the process of magic, you contact that deep level of consciousness, the unconscious archetype as we've been describing, and then through your ritual actions and your power, you begin to project that psychic energy into physical reality. Once that power enters physical reality, it can take on a life of its own. This is a thought form becoming real and quasi-physical, if I may coin a term. And once it's reached that level, it takes on a life of its own, and you can interact with it as if it were another person or another entity that you're talking with. Now, this is certainly a great metaphor for dealing with aspects of your deep unconscious, but I think that there is reason to believe that something in physical space begins to manifest as you perform your evocation. Mm-hmm. And so the question of, are the spirits real? Are they just